You feel it every single night. That slow walk to the bathroom at 2 in the morning, the standing there waiting, the sense that your own body has started keeping you on a leash. You empty out, you shuffle back to bed, and 40 minutes later you are up again. I know that walk. I walked it for years. And I want to tell you right now that the thing that finally loosened that grip on me did not come from a pharmacy shelf or a bottle with a $40 price tag. Here is what I learned, and it took me far too long to learn it. A small plain seed that costs almost nothing, that farmers and grandmothers were eating on purpose for over 100 years, does more for a swollen prostate than most of the supplements I wasted my money on. Not a cure sold as a miracle. A simple food, eaten a specific way, backed by real measurements. And the only reason you have never heard it laid out plainly is that nobody makes a fortune telling you to eat something you can buy for the price of pocket change. Stay with me, because near the end I am going to show you the exact method described in a German government health document from 1985, a document that quietly approved this seed for the aging prostate while the rest of us were being sold pills. I tested it in my own kitchen, on my own stubborn body, with nothing fancier than what you already have at home. I remember standing in my kitchen in the fall a few years back, a bag of these seeds spilled across the counter after a Halloween pumpkin, thinking there was no possible way something that cheap could matter. I was wrong. Let me show you why. Let me start where the trouble really starts, because if you do not understand the enemy inside you, no trick will make sense. Your prostate is a small gland about the size of a walnut when you are young. It sits right below your bladder, and the tube that carries your urine runs straight through the middle of it. That design is fine at 25. It becomes a problem at 55. Because for most men, somewhere around the age of 40, that gland quietly begins to grow. Not cancer, just growth. Doctors call it benign prostatic hyperplasia, and by the time a man is 60, more than half of us have it. By age 80, it is over 90%. Nearly every man who lives long enough will meet this. Here is the part that made me angry once I understood it. That gland is wrapped in a tight capsule, so when it swells, it has nowhere to expand except inward, squeezing that urine tube like a hand tightening around a garden hose. That is why the stream gets weak. That is why you feel like you did not finish. That is why you are up all night. The gland is literally pinching your plumbing. And for years, the only answers offered to me were expensive pills with side effects I did not like, or the suggestion that eventually I would just need surgery. Nobody, not one person, told me that men had been managing this with food long before any of those pills existed. But the story of how they managed it is where this gets interesting, and it points straight at that little seed. Because the answer was never hidden in a lab. It was sitting in a garden. For a long time, I assumed old remedies were just superstition dressed up as wisdom. Then I started reading where these things actually came from, and I stopped laughing. In 1874, a group of settlers and traditional healers in Eastern Europe and the region around Bulgaria and Ukraine were already known for eating a daily handful of pumpkin seeds, specifically as men aged, and the old accounts describe men in those farming villages having far fewer of the nighttime bathroom troubles that plagued men in the cities. Now, they did not know the word hyperplasia. They just knew that the men who ate the seeds slept through the night, and the men who did not, did not. That is observation passed down across generations, and it turned out to be pointing at something real. Here is what those farmers could not have known, but modern testing later found. Pumpkin seeds are unusually rich in a mineral called zinc, and your prostate holds more zinc than almost any other organ in your body. It concentrates it on purpose. When a man is low on zinc, the prostate tends to struggle more. A single ounce of pumpkin seeds, which is about a small handful, delivers a serious portion of the zinc you need in a day. But zinc is only the opening act. Those seeds also contain compounds called phytosterols, and one in particular, beta-cytosterol, is the exact compound that showed up later in the expensive prostate supplements I used to buy. I was paying premium money for a purified version of something already sitting inside a seed I could grow in my backyard. When I first read that, I did the math and felt sick. I had spent over about 3 years, somewhere north of $1,000 on bottles that promised relief. And the active ingredient they bragged about on the label was a plant sterol found in ordinary pumpkin seeds, flax, and a handful of common foods. Someone had taken a cheap, ancient food, isolated one piece of it, put it in a capsule, and sold it back to me at a markup I do not even want to calculate. That was the first moment I realized the knowledge had not disappeared by accident. Plain food you can grow does not build an industry. A patented capsule does. But knowing the seed had the right stuff inside it was not enough, because when I first tried just munching a few seeds, nothing happened, and I almost gave up. That failure taught me the most important lesson of all, and it is the part almost everyone gets wrong. Here is what I did wrong, and I bet you would do the same. I bought a bag of roasted salted pumpkin seeds from the snack aisle, ate a few here and there, and expected magic. Weeks went by. Nothing changed. I decided the old farmers were wrong and the whole thing was a myth. But the problem was not the seed. The problem was 3 things I did not understand yet, and once I fixed them, everything changed. First, roasting. High heat damages the delicate oils and sterols that do the real work. Those old villagers were not eating seeds blasted in a factory oven with salt and preservatives. They ate them raw, or dried gently in the sun or in a cool oven. The moment I switched to raw, unsalted pumpkin seeds, I was giving my body the intact compounds instead of the cooked-out shell of them. This one change costs you nothing. It is just choosing the raw bag instead of the roasted one. Second, the amount. A stray handful once in a while does nothing. The traditional practice and the amount that later showed up in the research is roughly 1 to 2 ounces a day, every single day, without skipping. That is about 2 tablespoons to a small handful of the shelled green seeds. Consistency is the entire game. Your prostate did not swell overnight, and it will not settle down overnight. I started measuring mine into a small dish every morning so I would not have to think about it, and I ate them like some men eat their morning vitamins. Third, and this is the one nobody told me, the form matters enormously. Whole seeds are good. But the compounds concentrate even more in the oil, and there is a way to get the benefit of the oil using nothing but a blender and the seeds themselves, which I will walk you through later because it is the heart of the whole method. Once I combined raw seeds, a daily amount, and that specific preparation, the nighttime trips started dropping. Not to 0, I am honest with you, but from 5 times a night down to 1 or 2 over the course of about 8 weeks, and that difference is the difference between exhaustion and a real night's sleep. Now I am telling you my experience, and experience is powerful, but I did not trust it until I found the numbers. Because I have been fooled by things that felt like they worked before. So let me show you the actual research, because this is where the story stopped being folk wisdom and started being something I could stand behind. In 2009, researchers ran a study on pumpkin seed oil and men with benign prostatic hyperplasia. Over the course of the study, the men taking the pumpkin seed oil showed a measurable drop in their symptom scores, the standard questionnaire doctors use to rate how bad the urinary trouble is. We are talking about a real tracked reduction in symptoms, not just people saying they felt nice. Then in 2014, a larger and longer study out of Korea followed men for a full 12 months. The group that took pumpkin seed oil daily saw their symptom scores drop by around 30% over that year, and their quality of life scores improved right alongside, 30% from a seed. That is not a rounding error. That is the difference between dreading the night and not thinking about it. And these were not fringe backyard experiments, but before I walk you through exactly what that research revealed, I want to share something with you. Everything I have been describing, the seed, the method, the old village practice, the German commission document, and the exact daily preparation steps, I went ahead and wrote all of it down in a complete guide. It is called First Fixes, and it is the first part of a 3-part digital book series I put together. First Fixes, Deeper Fixes, and the Full System. First Fixes covers exactly what we are talking about right now, the simple, cheap starting steps that work for most men within the first 8 weeks. Deeper Fixes goes further into the combinations and timing adjustments for men whose bodies need a little more. And the Full System lays out everything together as a daily practice you can run for the rest of your life. If you want the whole thing written out in one place, clear and plain, the link is in the description below. Now, back to the numbers, because this is where the story stopped being folk wisdom and started being something I could stand behind. These were controlled studies published in medical journals, using the same scoring systems urologists use in their own offices. The men were measured before, during, and after. The seed held up. So the old farmers in 1874, watching which men slept through the night, had been running an informal version of the same study for 150 years, and they got the same answer. The knowledge was right, it was just never profitable enough to shout about. But here is the question that started gnawing at me once I saw those numbers. If this works, if it has worked for over a century, if there are studies in real journals confirming it, then why in the world did no doctor ever mention it to me? Why did I have to trip over it by accident, spilling seeds on my kitchen counter? That question led me somewhere I did not expect, and it made me realize how much has been quietly buried. Think about the last time you walked into a pharmacy or scrolled through prostate supplements online. Every single option had a price tag, a brand name, a proprietary blend. There is an entire industry built on your swollen prostate, and that industry is worth billions of dollars a year. Pills to relax the gland, pills to shrink it, supplements with fancy names. And I want to be fair here, because some of those medicines genuinely help some men, and I would never tell you to walk away from a doctor you trust. But ask yourself a simple question. Where is the profit in telling a 60-year-old man to eat 2 tablespoons of raw pumpkin seeds every morning? There is none. You cannot patent a pumpkin seed. You cannot trademark something that has been growing in gardens since before your great-grandfather was born. That is the quiet machinery of how useful knowledge gets shelved. Nobody has to ban it, nobody has to burn the books. They simply stop funding the studies, stop putting it in the pamphlets, stop teaching it, and let it fade while the marketing budget goes to the thing with the markup. The German government actually did the opposite. Back in 1985, a special commission of doctors and scientists, known as Commission E, was assembled to evaluate hundreds of traditional plant remedies and decide, based on evidence, which ones actually worked. And pumpkin seed, listed under its botanical name, was officially approved for irritable bladder complaints and for the difficulties of the aging prostate. An entire government health body, decades ago, put it in writing. And still, on this side of the world, it never made it into the ordinary conversation between a man and his doctor. I find that staggering. So the seed works, the government of a major country approved it 40 years ago, and the research backs it up. But I promised you I would show you the exact method, and before I do, I need to talk directly to the person watching this who is thinking that all of this sounds nice for people with money and time and fancy kitchens. Because that person was me, and this next part is built specifically for you. If you are sitting there on a fixed income in an ordinary house or apartment, thinking that this is going to turn into a pitch for some expensive cold-pressed oil or a $200 blender, I want to put that fear to rest right now. This works with what you already have. I did the whole thing at my kitchen table with tools I have owned for 20 years. You do not need to buy a single gadget. You do not need a professional. You do not need to spend more than the cost of a bag of seeds, and a large bag of raw pumpkin seeds costs less than most people spend on one coffee out. Let me show you exactly how to do this tonight, with what is already in your cupboard. Start with raw, shelled pumpkin seeds, the green ones, sometimes labeled pepitas. If all you can find are the ones still in the white shell, that is fine. You just eat the green kernel inside. Buy them raw and unsalted. That is the only rule at the store. Now, the simplest version, the one anyone can do, is this. Measure out 2 tablespoons every morning. If you have a coffee grinder, an old spice grinder, or even a small blender, grind them into a coarse meal for about 10 seconds. You do not need it to be perfect powder. Grinding matters because those intact seed walls are tough, and a lot of the good compounds pass right through you if you swallow the seeds whole and barely chewed. Grinding cracks them open so your body can actually absorb the sterols and the zinc. I learned that the hard way after weeks of eating whole seeds and wondering why nothing was happening. Once you have your ground seeds, you have options, and every one of them is free. Stir the tablespoon of ground seed into a bowl of oatmeal, mix it into yogurt, sprinkle it over your eggs, stir it into a glass of water or juice and drink it down. It has a mild, nutty, almost green taste that disappears completely into most foods. I put mine in my morning oats and I genuinely stopped noticing it after the first week. The point is not fancy. The point is daily and ground. 2 tablespoons, ground, every single morning, no skipping. That alone puts you ahead of where I was for 3 wasted years and over 1,000 wasted dollars. Now here is the free upgrade that made the biggest difference for me, and it uses nothing but water and a little patience, soaking. The night before, take your 2 tablespoons of raw seeds and put them in a small glass with enough water to cover them. Let them sit overnight on the counter. In the morning, that soaking has begun to soften the seed and, according to what I read, wake up the enzymes and make the minerals easier for your body to grab. This is exactly the kind of step the old country households did without thinking, because they soaked their grains and seeds as a matter of habit, and we forgot why. Drain them, grind them, and eat them, as I described. That overnight glass of water costs you nothing, and in my own experience, it was the point where things really started to shift. And if you want to be even closer to what those studies used, which centered on the oil, you do not have to buy oil at all. Here is the neighbor's trick. Take a larger batch of soaked, drained seeds, blend them with a small amount of water into a thick paste, and you have essentially made a fresh seed cream that carries the oils intact because you pressed nothing out and lost nothing to heat. A spoonful of that paste a day gives you the whole seed and its oil together, fresh, for pennies. No cold press machine, no factory, just your blender and a glass of water. That is the method I settled on, and it is the one I still use. I want you to hear the freedom in that. Everything I just described, the grinding, the soaking, the blending, uses tools that have been in ordinary kitchens for 50 years. This was never meant to be expensive. It became expensive only when someone figured out how to bottle it. You are simply taking it back. So now you know the food, the amount, and the free way to prepare it. But I saved the most important detail for last, because this is the piece that ties everything together, and it comes straight out of that old German health document I mentioned, the one from Commission E in 1985. And when I finally understood it, it changed how I thought about the entire remedy. Here is the secret that the modern snack version completely destroys, and that the old records preserved. When Commission E approved pumpkin seed for the aging prostate, they were very specific about the form. They did not approve roasted snack seeds. They specified the seed in a state that keeps its natural oils and sterols intact, and, critically, they described a daily dose measured in grams of whole seed, roughly the equivalent of 1 to 2 small handfuls, taken continuously. Not as a one-time fix. As a daily food, the way you take bread, the entire power of it is in the repetition and in the intact, unheated form. The moment you roast it, salt it, and eat it as an occasional snack, you have thrown away the exact thing the document said made it work. And there is one more layer that the old European households understood and that almost nobody talks about today: timing and pairing. The traditional practice was to take the seeds away from other heavy foods that block mineral absorption and to keep the routine tied to a calm moment in the day, most often the morning, taken with a full glass of water. The reason that matters is that the whole benefit runs through consistent absorption of those sterols and that zinc over weeks and months, and anything that blocks the minerals blocks the result. When I move my seeds to first thing in the morning, on a mostly empty stomach, with a big glass of water, soaked from the night before and freshly ground, that was the combination that took me from up all night to sleeping through it. So let me put the whole thing together for you the way I finally put it together for myself, the way the old document laid it out and the modern studies confirmed. Raw, never roasted. 1 to 2 ounces, which is 2 tablespoons to a small handful, every single day without skipping. Soaked overnight in plain water to soften them. Ground fresh so your body can absorb what is inside. Taken in the morning with a full glass of water, away from heavy food. Done for at least 8 to 12 weeks, because that is how long it took in the studies and how long it took in my own body before the nights got quiet. That is it. That is the entire method that a government commission approved 40 years ago, that farming villages knew 150 years ago, and that I paid over $1,000 in useless capsules to avoid learning. The knowledge was never lost. Not really. It was written down in 1874 in the accounts of those Eastern European villages. It was measured and approved in 1985 by scientists who took traditional remedies seriously. It was confirmed again in 2009 and 2014 by researchers with clipboards and questionnaires. Every generation, someone wrote it down and kept it alive. The only thing that failed was the one link that was supposed to hand it to you and me, the ordinary conversation, the pamphlet in the waiting room, the word from a trusted source. That link went quiet because there was no money in it. But the seed kept working the whole time, waiting in gardens and grocery aisles for anyone who bothered to look. I think about those farmers sometimes, the ones in those villages, watching which of the old men slept through the night and which ones did not, and quietly passing the answer to their sons. They had no journals, no commissions, no studies. They just had eyes and 100 years of watching, and they were right. I spent 3 years in real money learning what they already knew, and I am glad I finally caught up, because the man who sleeps through the night is a different man in the morning. He is patient. He is rested. He is not exhausted by his own body. I got that back, and it cost me the price of a bag of seeds. If you take one thing from all of this, let it be that the quiet, cheap, old answers were not primitive. They were often better, and they were pushed aside precisely because they were cheap. You did not lose this knowledge because it stopped working. You lost it because nobody could sell it back to you at a profit, and tonight you are taking it back for free. That is what this whole channel is really about. The small, powerful things that used to belong to ordinary families before everything came with a price tag and a subscription. If you believe, like I do, that real, useful knowledge got quietly shelved to protect somebody else's profit margin, then you are exactly the kind of person this is for. So here is what I want you to do. Tell me in the comments whether you are going to try the overnight soak method or start simpler with the ground seeds in your oatmeal, and tell me where you are watching from, because I genuinely want to see how far this old village trick travels. Drop that comment now, because this audience never speaks up unless somebody asks, and I am asking. And if you want more of these buried methods, the cheap old answers that the convenience industry hoped you would forget, subscribe and stay close, because you have just joined a group of people quietly recovering what was taken from us. In the next one, I am going to show you the forgotten morning drink that farmers swore kept their blood pressure steady, made from something you are probably throwing in the trash right now. You will not believe what it is until I show you. I will see you there. I know that 2 in the morning walk because I made it for years. I'm still here because you're the one who really wants the answer. Inside the Timeless Ways circle, I pick up exactly where this video stopped. You can ask me your own question and I answer you myself. Folks just like you are already in there with me. Just point your phone camera at the code on the screen and you can cancel anytime.